that. Of course, Katie Perrier is still here, Matt Chorley's still here, and now Maria Caulfield is on the line, the Conservative MP for Lewis, who, by the way, is a member of the European Research Group, the arch Brexiteers of the Tory party. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning.
What did you make of what you heard there? Theresa May, just to pick up on that point at the end, is she going to last much longer beyond Brexit Day next year?
Well, there isn't a vacancy at the moment for a new leader of the Conservative Party, and Theresa May, it has a difficult job, and we've been very, very clear, most Brexiteers, in saying that this is about changing the policy and not the person, and now would be a terrible time to have a leadership contest. We are days away, literally, from leaving
now,
the
maybe,
EU.
Maria. Maybe not now, but there is a view about the place. You'd have heard it. I mean, you hang out at Westminster, same as the rest of us quite a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That her days are kind of ticking away, and beyond Brexit Day, it's hard for many people to see a future for the Prime Minister.
Well, I think this conference will be really important because, most backbench MPs are getting it on the doorstep that people are tired of the Brexit debate. They just want us to get on with it. They want us to leave. They want to know what their future looks like. But what matters to them on a day-to-day basis are domestic policies, about schools, about roads. Certainly in my constituency, Southern Rail features quite prominently. And so Brexit, while it's the big news for politicos and journalists and MPs, actually for the ordinary person on the street, who is getting up early, going to work, doing the right thing, they want to hear what difference their government's going to make to them. And hopefully at conference this week, we'll hear from the Prime Minister outlining some of those more domestic policies.
Yeah, but anyone you bump into in the street is going to be concerned about such things as their job or funding public services or the state and direction of the economy, whether it's growing or shrinking. And that's what Brexit ultimately, Maria, is really all about, isn't it? I mean, do you think when it comes to the Prime Minister's plan for Brexit, the so-called checkers plan, is that for you a complete dead duck? Is it not just, not just hold below the waterline, but 10 fathoms down?
Well, I've been very clear. I resigned from my position as vice chairman of the party because I can't support checkers, because it doesn't, for me, deliver the Brexit that I stood on a manifesto on. But, you speak to other people and that they do see that checkers delivers. But I just can't see it getting through Parliament, because whether you voted leave or remain...
Well, can anything get through Parliament? I mean, either checkers or, in fact, no deal. There's maybe a bigger majority against that on both sides of the House. Or the so-called Canada option, this loose free trade agreement which leaves problems with the Irish border that business don't like, because they say you'd have to check the origin of goods crossing borders, but also seems to have, it said, supporters in the cabinet, including maybe potential leadership contenders. What do you think about that?
Well, my understanding of the vote that will come before Parliament later this year is really whatever deal the EU and the government agree on will be put before Parliament, and it's either do you support it or don't you, and if you don't, then it's a no-deal exit. So, people talk about whether it's going to be a Canadian-style deal, or, it's whatever is agreed between government.
Canadian-style deal?
I'm a big supporter of it, and those people who say that, it doesn't solve the Northern Ireland solution, there is absolutely solutions to the Northern Ireland problem. The ERG set out those proposals which were widely accepted.
But your allies in the Democratic Unionist Party from Northern Ireland, they're not buying the idea of a border, whether it's at the border or whether it's away from the border?
They absolutely supported the ERG proposals, because what we're saying is you don't need to have any checks on the border. You can have a frictionless border as it is today, because there is already a border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. There's a border for VAT, for excise, for currency, for security, and there are no checks on the border. So adding customs and rules of origin checks can be done in a similar way to happens now.
Yeah.
And what we don't talk about...
Maria, that the idea of this free trade agreement on the lines of Canada, for many of the people who are absolutely central to all of this, they say it doesn't solve the Northern Ireland border problem. The technology doesn't deliver. A lot of the technology
Well, the technology exists. So if I don't think you were there at our launch, but if you heard from some of the customs experts that were there, they was this technology is being used now. So border inspection posts away from the border. Well, they're happening now in Rotterdam. They have their border inspection post 20 kilometres from their port. And what we don't hear in the debate is around the land bridge issue for the Republic of Ireland, which uses the United Kingdom as a land bridge to sell its billions of pounds worth of goods to the EU. Now, they are putting proposals for trusted trader schemes and for custom brokers, and if they are acceptable for the Republic of Ireland to use the UK as a land bridge, then those exact same methods are perfectly feasible in Northern Ireland without any border at all being created.
Okay, speaking of bridges, I mean, Boris Johnson seems to quite like bridges, doesn't he? He's spoken of a bridge to France, now a bridge to Ireland has come up among his pet ideas. What do you think about Boris Johnson as a potential future Prime Minister? I spoke to Liam Fox. He said he'd work under him.
Well, look, I'm a similar mind to Liam. I will work under whoever is the leader of the Conservative Party. There isn't a vacancy at the moment. I'm happy to serve under Theresa May as the Prime Minister. And I think, this talk about leadership challenges on the doorstep, it is really turning people off politics completely, because they want to know what we as politicians are doing for their schools, for their roads, their rails, their hospitals. And we've got some good news to tell on those stories. And this conference is an opportunity to say to people, look, we've done a huge amount since coming into government, and there's still a lot more to do.
Okay, Matt and Katie are here.
Yeah, Maria, do you think, given what you said about how all this goes down on the doorstep, do you think it might be good to have a period of silence from Boris Johnson?
Well, I think it'd be quite good to have a period of silence from a number of people, to be honest. So maybe not just Boris Johnson, but because but we have got really good. We've got record levels of employment in this country. We've got 20 billion. I was a nurse before being elected. We've got 20 billion pounds of extra funding going into the NHS. We've got, certainly in my neck of the woods, we've got 300 million pounds going into our rail network to try and improve and get us some sort of normal service, because there hasn't been any investment for decades. So there are good stories to tell, and I think if we don't focus on those, people will only hear about Brexit and leadership challenges, and then we wonder why they don't vote for us.
And Maria, it's Katie here. I'm really interested to know what you think Theresa May needs to do to get through this conference over the next few days, and get back to London and carry on with the Brexit process. Reminding people why they're Conservatives is probably number one on the agenda. What else does she need to do?
Well, I think we need to have some vision, and certainly if you hear from backbenchers, such as myself, Johnny Mercer, there are a number of us saying we need to have a vision of why people should vote Conservative, because we clearly saw last week why Jeremy Corbyn thinks people should vote Labour. And when you hear about their promises of record spending, but which will in reality cost every household in this country an extra £2,000 a year, we need to be providing an alternative for that. And I really do think we still need to remind people of why they talk about austerity, but it's actually living within our means. We're still paying as a country £38 billion a year on interest on our payment left behind by the last Labour government. That's more than our defence spending budget. And we failed to remind people of that and say, if we had all the money in the world, yes, we give more money to schools. There's record levels of investment going into schools, but we still have to live within our means. We still have to make those interest payments, and we've forgotten to tell people why there's still these constraints on spending.
Maria, it's obvious that you're not one of those who are consumed by ideology. You want to talk about the stuff that matters to people out there, just living their lives, although you've got pretty strong views on Brexit. You'll have seen the Prime Minister saying that it's in the national interest to go with her plan, that's really a duty, and suggesting those who are failing to back her in the way that she'd like, well, maybe it's a little bit unpatriotic. What did you make of that?
Well, I was slightly hurt by that, because, it's not been in my interest to object to Chequers. I had to resign from my post as Vice Chairman of the party. My constituency is slightly towards Remain, so electorally it's not necessarily in my interest to be such a strong Brexiteer, but I went on that manifesto that we would deliver Brexit in a particular manner, and I said to my constituents that I would fight to get the best deal. And whether you were a Remain MP or a Leave MP, there's people like Nick Bowles, Greg Hands, Justine Greening, who are all Remain MPs saying Chequers is not the best deal we could get. And so, I feel it's vital that I speak out now while there's an opportunity to influence the deal that we get.
But you were a bit upset by what the Prime Minister
said. Well, I don't consider myself unpatriotic at all, but, I can see why the Prime Minister would say that. She's under immense pressure, but we are fully behind the Prime Minister in wanting her to get the best possible deal. I personally just don't feel Chequers is the one that Chequers isn't the deal. Chequers is our offer to the EU. I'm really worried about what they may actually agree to in the end.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for the Prime Minister. I don't want to speak for the Prime Minister, but I've got to say, Maria, to me, you sound very nearly reasonable. It's been good to talk to you on the show this morning.
I think that's a compliment.
Do you as as well. Maria Caulfield, good to talk to you. Pienaar's Politics, much more coming up after the break. It's 10:33.